Bismillah, as-salatu as-salam, Rasullallah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah. Today we're going to talk about, inshallah, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's marriage to Aisha. A very controversial topic that a lot of people that are really anti-Islamic, whether they even realize it or not, they use this as a way to really attack our religion. And they really think they got a point, you know? I mean, for them it's just so much of a common sense thing in their head that they think that it's a no-brainer, that for sure they're right about this. So as Muslims, how do we answer that question, right? Because here we are, right, living in the 21st century, and we have basically the values and the way of life that we're used to today. However, this is something that has always taken place throughout history, though. Children getting married at very young ages. But for us, they're children, but during those times, they were considered to enter adulthood, right? And this happened throughout history. But let's talk about our situation that we have to concern ourselves with, because we have to answer these questions for people, right? And, because Islam is a very fair religion, and it appeals to the intellect of people. It doesn't tell us to have a blind faith and just believe in anything, right? We're challenged to study. We're challenged to look at the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're challenged to even, critique the Quran. And that's Islam. Alhamdulillah. Allah wants us to look for contradictions, right? If we can't find them, then we should believe. It's as simple as that. Allah is all fair. Allah is all just. Don't ever forget that. So alhamdulillah, what are we dealing with here with this controversial issue? This is what we really have. Basically, we know as Muslims that Aisha radiyallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her, she did marry the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the age of 9, and did consummate the marriage at that age as well. And so she in fact hit puberty, right? This is without a doubt. And for us in Islam, for Muslims, the benchmark for which people enter adulthood is actually puberty. Now, throughout history and throughout different regions of the world and throughout different time periods and even until today, that physical aspect of puberty takes place at different ages. Some have it at a very young age, and you'll have young boys becoming men at the age of 9 and 10 years old, and sometimes at the age of 14 or 15 years old. It just depends on each individual and circumstances, and just there's a million factors, right? So Aisha herself did actually reach puberty before she married the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and according to the scientific aspects of her physical age, she was able to actually reproduce and have a child of her own. That's physical reality right there. That's scientific facts. And so whoever wants to dispute that, they basically then have to negate their views of what physical maturity means in a scientific sense. And so alhamdulillah, that should answer half the question. Now the other half of the question is, well, what about her mental state? How could you possibly say she could have been mentally prepared to marry somebody at the age of 9? Well, we're comparing her day and age to our day and age, and that's a big mistake. As Muslims, right, we understand this was a very special circumstance that took place for Aisha, and she was put in a very special situation, and this was a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because she was to be the student of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was an exceptional human being. She just wasn't an average person that he just wifed. You understand? It's not how it happened at all. Today's day and age, this isn't anything that any Muslims are advocating for. There's no reason, right, in today's day and age where a girl has to go to high school in order to even understand and how to basically be able to teach her kids how to basically continue in this world, right? We live in a completely different day and age. It's nothing like 1400 years ago, so we have to take that into account, right? Today's day and age, it makes no sense, really, for young Muslims to get married before the age of 16, 17 years old. If not, honestly, in my opinion, at least wait till you're 19 18, 19 years old is a fair age to at least finish high school before you get married, because that's kind of like the basic building block of education that's needed in this world to really learn how to raise a household and to relate to the world around you. You see what I'm saying? I mean, there are basically educational benchmarks that are required to operate, and so we have to take those things into account, and so that's what entails the mental part of things for today, right? Definitely education. Well, during that day and age, this was not an uncommon thing for girls to get married at such young ages, because their level of education, their level of getting prepared to live in this world and to survive, was that of really being able to take care of their household, was that of being able to work in the field that it was going to take for them to survive and for them to basically make it. You understand? And so we live in a different day and age. You can't really compare your values of today to those of yesterday, 1400 years ago. It just really doesn't add up. Another thing, right, that we have to imagine, Aisha was a genius, okay? And so her brain at the age of 9, even if you took it to today's day and age, is not going to compare to 90 to 95% of the brains today of females. You understand? She was a very excelled and elevated female. You understand? As a human being, she was a scholar. She is the 4th most recorder of hadiths in our entire religion. You see what I'm saying? That means a quarter of, well, I'm not going to say a quarter, but the 4th most of the hadiths go right back to her. You see what I'm saying? That's a huge deal for any human being to be able to memorize that much. But how was she able to memorize so many hadiths? All right, why was she able to become such an incredible scholar, right? Which includes jurisprudence, which includes being able to be a qadi, which is a judge, right? Which is being able to translate, some very, very sophisticated and detailed text that could actually run an entire country. She was actually the general at one time of the army, leading it. You see what I'm saying? And the men actually reported to her command. This is not an average woman. Can you tell me when the first female general came in world history after her? Think about those things, right? She was beyond her years. You understand? And so you really cannot compare Aisha marrying the Prophet ﷺ to any other girl that you're probably ever going to witness today. And I'm not saying they don't exist today, but it's going to be very rare to find these incredible human beings. You see? And so people really need to understand the context of that. And then also as Muslims, we have to put our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you really think Allah could not raise a human being at such an early age to be ready to become a wife and a student of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be guided under his household, right, in his home, for him to be able to basically teach this person and be her husband? You don't think Allah could have expanded her and basically elevated her faster than an average girl? Why not? Allah can do anything, right? And so according to our Islamic standards, right, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did everything that is actually very normal to do during that day and age. But also, even today's day and age, right, it wouldn't be an impossibility, right? It would not be an impossibility for a girl to be physically and mentally ready for the age of marriage, even at the age of 10 or 9 years old today. Not to say we would advocate for that or promote that, because it makes no sense in today's day and age. There's no reason for that. There's not any girl that needs to be trained under a prophet today. There's no practical reason to do something like that. So it would only be something that would be harmful rather than beneficial. And so a lot of these marriages where girls are married off in these countries, it isn't something that the Muslims really agree with. We're actually understanding that these aren't beneficial at all. But a lot of times they happen, these young women marriages right when they're hitting puberty at 13 and 14, they happen out of really not due to religious reasons. They're not doing it to practice Islam, but they're doing it basically out of economic reasons. These girls come from very, very poor families, and they're just trying to get someone to take care of their daughters, honestly. And so a lot of the things that we dislike to see, a lot of the things that hurt us to see, a lot of the things that bother us, they're really rooted in just basically tough economic situations, and that's really what people should be upset with. But talking about the Prophet ﷺ in any other way except for him following a command of Allah is ludicrous, honestly. That's like asking, what about Moses splitting the Red Sea? Right? Are we going to disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we don't think he could have done that? Think about that. What about Jesus, alayhi salam, Isa, raising back the dead from life? Are we going to say we don't believe in Allah because we can't believe that Allah could have done that? Well, it's much easier than for Allah to have advanced a single student of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Aisha, to be ready to take on this responsibility at a young age, right? And so I think that's something we could ask people to think about before they make these outlandish claims, right, of our Prophet marrying Aisha radiyallahu anha, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, subhanallah. So you got to ask them, was it a physical impossibility? When somebody hits puberty, to be physically ready for marriage? The answer is no. It's possible. Scientifically, it's possible. Was it a mental impossibility? If the culture supported it, if the person was exceptional, if the circumstances all surrounding this person had the right mentors and everything, was that an impossibility? The answer scientifically, again, is no. It's very possible. It's not even that outlandish of an idea. So what is outlandish, though, is for people to talk about the greatest human being, along with the other prophets, who actually is the most influential human being, most successful human being individually, is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and who brought the greatest amount of change for the positive towards his people, and for women, and even for animals, even for the treatment of soldiers, even for the treatment of your enemies, right? Someone who brought the greatest revolution to the planet Earth, and people are going to turn and then find a way to try to call him names because it's something they don't understand, even on a scientific level. It's not right. So as Muslims, alhamdulillah, we have nothing in this religion but to be proud of it. Wallahi, Allah gave us the most incredible deen that you could ever ask to have and to follow. And for the critics, some will, inshallah, if you really have a debate with them, and just a discussion, not necessarily a debate, but at least just have a discussion with them. Give them a chance to see some reason, some logic, some truth. And a lot of them will change their minds. They'll see things differently. Honestly, I've seen it happen. Then there'll be others that it doesn't matter what you tell them. There was a man during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, even if you brought me a staircase or a ladder that came from heaven and it landed here and I was able to climb up and see, Allah in heaven, he said, I would still disbelieve in you. And that was because he wasn't from his tribe. And for a lot of people, they're still very actually tribal in their thinking till today. So that's not going to change. And we're not here to change people. We're just here to give them something to think about, inshallah. Give them some evidence, give them some reason, give them something fair and logical. And that's our job. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam could not guide every human being. Isa alayhi salam could not guide every human being, right? Musa alayhi salam could not guide every human being. They only came to deliver the message, right? And only Allah can guide the hearts. And so we have to let Allah guide whoever He wills. But at the very least, let's do our job, inshallah. That's it. May Allah guide everyone and guide the Muslims and forgive us. And inshallah, give us the best of this life and the best of the hereafter. And let us live in a way where we really strive to help each other as Muslims and help humanity as well, and to give charity, and to understand that Allah is almighty and He's all worthy of worship, and this dunya is fleeting, and it's not worth losing our humanity over, even though that's its goal. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.